Chapter 2016. Thanks to Lin Xian's narration, an exciting match became even more interesting. Even though Tang Guo could not see, she could hear the enthusiastic voices of the spectators around her. In this match, Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong's cooperation was flawless. This allowed Jiang Yandong to perform at the highest level in the competition. Everyone was very happy and kept shouting Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan's code names. At this moment, they temporarily forgot all the flaws of these two people. They only hoped that in the next match, they would be able to perform better than usual and push their opponents to the ground. During the short break, Xiao Yan instinctively took out her phone. Just as she turned it on, she received a private message notification. She originally thought that it was from the fans who were not present to congratulate her on her first victory. Unexpectedly, when she opened the private message, she saw that it was filled with the word mistress. It hurt her eyes. She could not help but open the rest of the private messages. She realized that most of them were scolding her. They said that she was disgusting, that she was cheating with someone who was already taken, that she was shameless just to make a name for herself. All in all kinds of vulgar words entered her eyes. Xiao Yan was so angry that her whole body trembled and her eyes turned red. Jiang Yandong and the rest of the team quickly realized the situation with Xiao Yan. Seeing that the situation was not right, they hurriedly pulled Xiao Yan to the back while there was still time. After asking, they found out that her private messages had exploded. Everyone in the team was furious when they saw those unbearable vulgarities. These people must be crazy. Yandong has already broken off his engagement with Tang Guo. So what if they are cheating? Tong Hui said angrily. Although he was not very happy that Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan were cheating. Especially when the two of them cooperated so well and had such a good relationship, it made him very jealous. It must be Tang Guo. She couldn't take it lying down, so she got someone to bomb Xiao Yan's private messages, Tong Hui muttered. However, this sentence did not garner the approval of the entire team. They all shook their heads. When Yunyang even said, "I saw Xiao Guo earlier." She was in the audience. Besides, with her temperament, there was no need for her to do so. If she really wanted to take revenge on Yandong, she would have exposed the news of the annulment of the engagement. It would be too easy to smear Yandong's reputation. Now that Tang Guo and Jiang Yandong had broken off their engagement, when Yunyang felt that she couldn't be that kind of person. His words received the approval of the others. Although in their hearts, Tang Guo was easily jealous, but this kind of private message bombarding Xiao Yan was definitely not something she would do. Lu Hong frowned and slapped the back of Tong Hui's head. "You're not allowed to say such thoughtless things again. Xiao Guo isn't that kind of person." If she hadn't let Yandong off, Yandong's reputation would have been ruined that month. He knew very well that from Tang Guo's position, it would be too easy for her to ruin Jiang Yandong's reputation. As for the fact that Xiao Yan had been bombarded with private messages, he suspected that it was done by those who wanted to destroy Jiang Yandong. There's still some time before the next match. Lu Hong took a deep breath. "Xiao Yan, don't be too bothered by the comments on the internet. Adjust yourself first. Do your best and don't affect the match. At this time, winning is the most important thing." Xiao Yan bit her lip and nodded. "I will." Then, she passed the phone to Lu Hong. "Xiao Guo and I have already broken off our engagement. It's my fault for not telling everyone in time. You didn't do anything wrong. Those people just didn't know and misunderstood." Jiang Yandong comforted her. Xiao Yan calmed down a lot. "Okay, I will do my best. I won't let you guys down." Lin Tong also noticed that Xiao Yan and the others had gone to the backstage. She whispered this to Tang Guo. She must have seen the comments on the internet. Coach Lu Hong is probably advising her now. Although it was a little unkind, Lin Tong was very happy. System, he's also very happy. Lin Xian, the comments on the internet have caused extreme comfort. Tangua, she has to pretend to be calm and maintain a faint smile. Chapter 2017. Xiao Yan sat at the back for a while. With the consolation of her teammates, she felt much calmer. Although she still felt uncomfortable, she knew the severity of the situation. Today was the first day that she and Jiang Yandong worked together. She must not let this affect the competition. When she returned to her seat, she instinctively looked at the audience. Tangua's seat was very conspicuous. It was the best spot to watch. She saw it at a glance. Even though she knew that Tangua could not see her, she still felt uncomfortable. She returned to her seat stiffly. She could not help but look at the audience. She realized that many of them were looking at her seat. They were holding their phones and whispering to each other. Although she could not hear what they were whispering, she instinctively thought of the words that she had received in her private message. In an instant, her mood was terrible. Jiang Yandong had already broken off his engagement with Tangua. Why did those netizens who were not clear about the situation like to scold her? The more Xiao Yan thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. Her mind was in a mess. Especially those in the audience. They were looking at her and whispering to each other. Most of them were talking about her. I have to say that Xiao Yan and Jiang Jiang's teamwork is not bad. Although her character is not good, her skills are not bad. Yes. With her teamwork, Jiang Jiang did not die at all today. It was all thanks to her protection. Let's not talk about her character in esports. Hopefully, Jiang Jiang will be able to perform well in this year's international competition with her teamwork. Xiao Yan thought that these people were talking about her and Jiang Yandong, saying that she was shameless. In reality, the audience was more concerned about the current competition. As for the other gossip, they were not that interested. Perhaps they would wait until the competition was over before they talked about Tao Tao. Even if Xiao Yan's character was not good, in the esports industry, there were many fans of her skills. They only look at your strength, not who you are. They don't care about these things at all, who cares who you are? However, because of these whispers, Xiao Yan, who had seen the abusive comments in the private messages, was greatly affected. Her previous efforts to mediate were in vain. Lu Hong saw that something was wrong with her and came over to talk to her for a while. Xiao Yan was afraid that it would really affect her performance, so she calmed herself down and let her mood recover a little. The second match began. From the start of the match, everyone realized that Xiao Yan's coordination was not as good as it was in the previous match. If it weren't for Jiang Yandong's quick reaction, he would have been killed by the enemy several times. During this period of time, Xiao Yan made 3 mistakes. The first one was that she didn't use her shield in time, so Jiang Yandong could only exchange a life with the enemy's attacker. If Xiao Yan had reacted in time and blocked the damage first, then used her shield on Jiang Yandong, then Jiang Yandong could have escaped successfully in the battle between the two sides. The second mistake was that Xiao Yan didn't give her vision in time, so Jiang Yandong was killed by the combination of the local, field, auxiliary, and middle 3. The third mistake was that Xiao Yan didn't use her ultimate skill in time and stunned the enemy's 2 attackers. Jiang Yandong, who was fighting the Dominator, only had a quarter of his HP left. In the end, the 2 attackers took the opportunity to kill Jiang Yandong and steal his dragon. Chapter 2018. Each of these 3 mistakes was fatal for a team. It was very likely that they would be defeated by the other team. Xiao Yan had not failed to do these things, but she had not done it in time. In other words, Jiang Yandong had been killed before she could react. Because of the first mistake of not using a shield in time, Xiao Yan's confidence had taken a hit. Her bad mood, coupled with her panic, made it impossible for her to perform at her best even if she was not weak. A slight lapse in concentration would result in the defeat of a match. This was during the competition. Even if Lu Hong was anxious to pull Xiao Yan down, there was nothing he could do. He could only hope that Jiang Yandong could remain calm and think of a way to turn the tables. Jiang Yandong had been in this business for a long time. He believed that the other party would definitely find a chance to turn the tables. Xiao Yan's performance made him angry. He also understood that she might have been affected by the previous comments. He had already decided that before the next match, he would not let Xiao Yan look at her phone. Xiao Yan did not have much experience. It was easy for her to be affected by the outside world. Jiang Yandong did not blame Xiao Yan. His expression was very serious, and his mind was very calm. He was looking for a chance to break through and turn the tables. Now, he did not leave his back to Xiao Yan. Instead, he immediately changed his plan. He left Xiao Yan behind and used an orphan to fight in the jungle. The other teammates saw this and understood what he meant. They did their best to delay the other party. Jiang Yandong's hand speed was very fast, and his positioning was tricky. Every time the other party was fighting with his teammates, he would steal the tower. Xiao Yan could no longer cooperate with him. This match was completely against the wind. He had to break the previous fixed pattern of the game, even if this method was very dangerous. But as long as he broke through this situation, he would have a chance to turn the tables. At this point, he was also sweeping the towers very quickly. In less than 5 times, he was able to push down a tower. Previously, the other party had taken advantage of Xiao Yan's weakness and had been looking for a breakthrough with her. They did not expect that while they were chasing Xiao Yan, Jiang Yandong was stealing towers. He was stealing jungles, and the other teammates were guarding the towers. The result was very funny. The other party was actually chasing a support. It was really shocking. After all, this kind of situation basically did not happen. Of course, they, who were at a disadvantage, reacted and went to pin down Jiang Yandong. Jiang Yandong's hand speed and his positioning. Unless the other party had a hard control, the other party, they would not be able to catch him. By the time they came back to their senses, the other paths had already been taken. Xiao Yan also reacted, but she couldn't keep up with Jiang Yandong's pace. She also had a feeling that the whole team had left her behind, as if she was being abandoned. In the end, he was defeated. Teams that were able to participate in professional competitions weren't weak at all. If they could not seize the opportunity and lost because of Xiao Yan's 3 mistakes and the fact that she could not keep up with the team, it would be the laughing stock of the esports circle. After the failure, whether it was the audience or the members of the other team, they all had complicated expressions. Some of the fans in the audience seats even started to discuss. Because of Xiao Yan's 3 mistakes, they lost. After the match, Xiao Yan felt that the people around her were looking at her strangely. This made her face burn. Chapter 2019. Instinctively, she walked towards the audience. They were still whispering to each other. She also saw Lin Tong covering her mouth and looking at her. She seemed to be saying something to Tanguo. She looked very embarrassed. Xiao Yan, you made too many mistakes. Lu Hong patted Xiao Yan's shoulder. There was still one more match and he didn't want to say anything that might affect her mood. Do well in the next match. Keep your emotions calm and don't think about anything else for now. Understood, boss. Xiao Yan sighed and looked at Jiang Yandong. Jiang Yandong nodded. It's your first match. It's normal for you to be nervous. Have a good rest and do well in the next match. It's okay to lose this match. We still have a chance in the next match. Your performance in the first match was already not bad. Jiang Yandong continued. Although he was hurt by Xiao Yan's mistakes, he couldn't bear to blame her when he saw her expression. He only hoped that she could perform well in the last match. As long as they won the last match, everything would be fine. He wouldn't let his team lose. If they won 2 out of the 3 matches, it would be their team's victory. After receiving Jiang Yandong's encouragement, Xiao Yan felt much better. But soon, she realized that the other team members were looking at her with disdain. Although they didn't say anything directly, she could feel the distrust and blame in their eyes. It made her feel bad. The others also stopped talking and laughing with her like before. Especially one of their teammates who had played at the same time. Their opinions of Xiao Yan gradually grew. Although they had a good impression of Xiao Yan, they had always liked her. But they were born to play esports. In the face of esports, women really didn't mean much. Every single one of them had to be serious about winning or losing a match. Any mistake made by any one of them was a disrespect to the team. Even Tong Hui felt the same way. After the others left, he walked in front of Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, don't drop the ball in the next match. If you lose, it will be a disgrace to Yandong. In the 3 matches between the 2 teams, there would definitely be winners and losers. Jiang Yandong's undefeated legend referred to the fact that even if he didn't always win the first 2 matches, he would always win 2 matches in the end. Jiang Yandong was still confident about the final match. He planned to discuss it with the others so that they wouldn't be so helpless if they encountered such a situation again. Xiao Yan didn't feel good. Even if Jiang Yandong and the coach didn't blame her, her teammates, who had been warm to her before, had become much colder. This made her very sad. In this position, she didn't want to lose the competition. Do your best. We know how strong you are. You must do your best in the last match. When Yunyang walked to Xiao Yan's side and comforted her carefully. Xiao Yan, the final victory or defeat depends on you. You must do your best. Xiao Yan, who had been feeling down, felt much better when she saw Wen Yunyang's smile. I will. I won't bring any losses to anyone. During this period, she really did it. She didn't look at her phone or the audience seats. In the 3rd match, although her cooperation was average and not as good as in the first match, she still won in the end. Xiao Yan only heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the location crystal B. But when she picked up her phone again, she realized that she had received many replies. Chapter 2020. She couldn't help but click on it. With this level of skill, you'd better not be a burden to Jiang Jiang. Xiao-san, what kind of lousy skills are you using? If it weren't for Jiang Jiang, you would have lost. This woman is so disgusting. I suspect that she used some tricks to bewitch Jiang Jiang so that she joined the team. I've long disliked this woman. I heard that Jiang Jiang stayed out all night because of her and made Xiao Guo worry the whole night. Jiang Jiang must have been bewitched by her. If something really happened, why did she have to look for someone like Jiang Jiang, who is already engaged? She's really a bitch and a white lotus. Xiao Yan couldn't take it anymore as she read the insults. Her eyes turned red. But there were still people around and she could only hold it in. This time, it was indeed her fault. She didn't cooperate well in the 3rd round, which made it so difficult for Jiang Yandong. But those people insulted her as a bitch and a white lotus. She couldn't take it. She had never thought of sabotaging Jiang Yandong and Tang Guo. Tang Guo had already been brought out of the competition venue by Lin Xian and Lin Tong. There seemed to be merchandise sold outside today. Lin Xian asked Tang Guo if she wanted to shop. He asked if there was anything she wanted and said that the merchandise here was very good. Of course, it was good to be able to go on a date with the bald guy. Lin Tong was so jealous that she gritted her teeth. But she was really happy to be able to buy some merchandise. Today, she would choose more and make Brother Xian bleed. She didn't leave directly and left the 2 of them here alone. Lin Tong remembered that Jiang Yandong didn't publicly announce the annulment of their engagement. If people saw Brother Xian and Tang Guo talking and laughing alone together, they could easily be used by people with ulterior motives to slander Tang Guo. She didn't directly persuade Tang Guo to announce the annulment of their engagement. She wanted Jiang Yandong to announce it directly. She browsed through the comments on the internet. Xiao Yan couldn't take it anymore, right? At that time, wouldn't Jiang Yandong feel sorry for Xiao Yan and jump out to tell the fans that he had already broken off his engagement with Tanggua? If Jiang Yandong wanted to annul the engagement at this time, things would not be simple. None of them were fools. After a brief analysis, they understood why he had chosen to announce it now instead of before. He didn't announce it earlier because he was afraid that it would damage his reputation. Then why did they have to announce it now, despite the damage to their reputation? It was because they didn't want to see Xiao Yan get scolded. Now, wouldn't the reputation of a scumbag man and a scumbag woman be solidified? As long as the two of them dared to be together, the fans would not let them off. Furthermore, with Xiao Yan's performance today, it would be strange if they did not get scolded to death. Lin Tong put her phone in her bag and held back her laughter. Thinking of that scene, she wanted to laugh out loud. Host, Lin Tong looked especially happy. Clearly, Jiang Yandong's team had won today. The system asked in confusion. Actually, it also knew that for a mature team like Jiang Yandong's, even if they lost a match in the middle, they would quickly find their weakness and decide on a strategy for the next match. There was more than one strategy. They could deal with sudden situations at any time. It should be said that after losing the middle match, they were already prepared. In the third match, Xiao Yan might still not cooperate well, so they tried their best to minimize her personal impact. No matter what, as long as the team's standard was not on par with theirs, or even surpassed theirs, they would win the third match. Chapter 2021. The result was the same. However, Xiao Yan's performance was better than expected, even though her coordination was still very stiff. At least she did not make that kind of low-level mistake again. However, the viewing effect was not as good. Because mistakes are not allowed in the esports industry. Especially such low-level mistakes. No matter what the person's identity is, as long as they make such a low-level mistake, they will be remembered by the esports fans for life. Even if they retire in the future, there will be people who will bring it up from time to time. Unless they are in an absolute disadvantageous position in a certain match and have no chance of making a comeback. Then, with their individual ability, they can lead the team to victory once. This kind of halo can cover up such a small mistake. That's for sure. Very soon, there will be a lot of people going to the team's official Weibo account and asking them to let go of Jiang Yandong and get Xiao Yan out of the team and out of the esports industry. It was supposed to be a perfect debut. As long as they cooperated well, the team would have won the first two matches. Then, Xiao Yan would have a problem with her character and would be scolded by others. However, in the eyes of the esports fans, she was still very impressive and would have gained a large number of fans. If she continued, with her talent, she would have been able to become a legend in the esports industry once again. Unfortunately, she did not grasp this opportunity. Her perfect debut turned into a loss of face. She won the match and lost everything. Because of her cooperation, Jiang Yandong became more exhausted. This was something that Jiang Yandong's fans could not accept. Before this, they were filled with anticipation. What they wanted to see was Jiang Yandong slaughtering everyone. But what was the situation now? Xiao Yan's individual mistake had to be paid for by Jiang Yandong and the entire team. They could not accept this. Especially in the last match. Even though Xiao Yan did not make a mistake, her stiff cooperation made them feel uncomfortable. Jiang Yandong's last match was also played very carefully. Everyone knew why he did that. Therefore, if there were no other accidents, Xiao Yan's esports career had come to an end. Of course, if she left the team and played in another team's attacking position, she might have a chance. Xiaogua, do you like what I just said? Lin Xian asked. Tang Guan nodded. Listening to Brother Xian's description, I think it's pretty good. Then let's buy them all. It's rare to see such a complete set of figurines. Lin Xian didn't really like these things, but when he was at Tang Gua's house, he found that she had a room full of figurines. After asking, he found out that although she did not play games in the past, she liked to collect these beautiful figurines. Since she liked it so much, she definitely wouldn't miss out on today's events. Brother Xian, what about me? Lin Tong said sourly. I'm your cousin. Have you forgotten about me? What do you want? Lin Xian asked. Lin Tong, look at his tone. It's really different. He's really my cousin. I want them all. Lin Tong pretended to be angry as she said, give me one of each. No, give me two. Xiao Guo and I will each have one. Lin Xian nodded. Then, Tang Guo said, Xiao Guo, how about I pick one of each? Lin Tong, I'm so angry. Her cousin was no longer her cousin. At this moment, there was a commotion behind them. Lin Tong quickly turned around. Tang Guo also turned around. Although she couldn't see anything, the system would broadcast it to her. Chapter 2022. What happened? Tang Guo asked calmly. Hearing her tone, the system knew that she must have guessed something and was happy about it. Tang Guo nodded. That's expected. If I hadn't appeared, she would have had a smooth journey. She would have become a legend in the esports industry. Countless trials and tribulations had created a tenacious and unyielding heart. But I appeared early and she wouldn't have had the chance to train. She would have been eliminated. It wasn't that Xiao Yan wasn't smart. It was just that she had appeared early and prevented Xiao Yan from having the chance to train. Naturally, she wouldn't have been able to achieve what she had in the original plot. Just like in the previous worlds, the female lead of each world might not be a perfect person at the start. But in the end, she would always be perfect. Because they would have had enough trials and opportunities. There would have been hardships, but overall, it would have been smooth sailing. Naturally, they would have grown to be what everyone wanted them to be. Once all this was broken, the so-called halo wouldn't be easy anymore. Countless people were shouting for Xiao Yan to get out of the esports industry. Tang Guo didn't laugh out loud. Instead, she was very calm. In today's competition, Xiao Yan had already lost. Even if she didn't do anything in the future, Xiao Yan wouldn't be able to get back up. Lin Tong was talking to Tang Guo about what had happened. After she was done, she sighed. The esports industry is like this. A small mistake can be remembered for a long time. Xiao Yan is the only female team member. She will have a tough time in the future. Aren't we going to buy figurines? Tang Guo asked. Lin Xian quickly said, then we'll buy them. As for Xiao Yan behind them, the three of them didn't have the mood to watch the scene of her being carried into the car by Jiang Yandong. When Jiang Yandong heard those people scolding Xiao Yan, he was furious too. But he couldn't say anything. After all, Xiao Yan had made too many mistakes today. She couldn't blame these people for going crazy. When they sent her back to the club, Xiao Yan was naturally scolded. However, they did not intend to give up on Xiao Yan. They had trained her for so long, and Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong's cooperation was indeed perfect. Moreover, they were a male and female couple, which was more eye-catching and could make a lot of topics. The club felt that it wasn't worth it to give up just like that, so they planned to continue. Meanwhile, on the internet, countless people were scolding Xiao Yan for being a green tea, a white lotus, and a fake couple with someone who already had a fiancé. They claimed that her skills weren't good enough and that she must have used some special means to be able to compete. As a result, the hashtags #Xiao Yan get out of the esports circle hashtag and #Xiao Yan mistress hashtag were trending on the internet for 2 days in a row and became more and more popular. In the end, Jiang Yandong couldn't take it anymore. He directly posted a status, stating that he and Tang Guo had broken off their engagement. Both of them were free people, and there was no Xiao Yan's mistress. She thought that Xiao Yan would not be scolded anymore. Chapter 2023. Jiang Yandong didn't expect that after he clarified everything, the netizens would scold him even more fiercely. Looking at those scolding words, he was a little dazed and annoyed. For the first time, he felt that these crazy esports fans were a burden. Shameless. This is really the mistress becoming the legal wife. Even the scumbag can't help but come out to protect the mistress. Yeah, since the engagement was already cancelled, why didn't he announce it earlier? Why did he only announce it now? What else could it be? So many things happened before. He was afraid of being scolded by the netizens. After all, Xiaoguo did so much for him and treated him wholeheartedly. If he dared to announce the cancellation of the engagement, there would be a huge uproar and his image would be ruined. No wonder Xiaoguo hasn't updated for a long time. Oh right, I remember that something happened to Xiao Yan and she asked Jiang Yandong to go over to help her. After disappearing for a night, Xiaoguo didn't update anything, right? I checked just now. It's like this. If that's the case, they probably cancelled the engagement at that time. The comments on the internet were getting more and more heated. The people in the club didn't expect Jiang Yandong to clarify the cancellation of his engagement with Tang Guo. Previously, Xiao Yan was the only one who was scolded. It wasn't a big deal. After all, Jiang Yandong was in a good situation. But now that he had posted it, wouldn't it be confirmed? Because of Xiao Yan, their engagement was cancelled. The matter of Xiao Yan being the mistress couldn't be cleared up. At the same time, Jiang Yandong also received the title of a scumbag. It was impossible to clear his name now. At the club, Jiang Yandong was harshly scolded. He didn't say anything to refute, but Xiao Yan couldn't bear to see him like this. Just as she was about to say something, she was stopped by the sharp-eyed Wen Yunyang. Anything you say now will cause dissatisfaction and trouble for Yandong. Wen Yunyang's voice was very soft. His words made Xiao Yan calm down. This matter has blown up after all. The person in charge of the club looked at Lu Hong. Do you have any thoughts? We can't let Jiang Yandong's reputation continue to be tarnished. Lu Hong's face was full of helplessness. What can we do? No matter how much he did now, no one would believe him. The more you do, the more mistakes you make. The more you say, the more mistakes you make. After all, Jiang Yandong was still young. He naively thought that admitting to the annulment of the engagement would help Xiao Yan prove her innocence. If it was someone else, it would really be possible. However, his former fiancée was Tang Guo. The Tang Guo who had saved Jiang Yandong, sacrificed everything for him, and liked him wholeheartedly. She was even loved by many esports fans. The entire esports industry knew about their relationship. Now that Jiang Yandong was doing something like this, everyone was feeling subtle. I'm sorry. I'm willing to bear the consequences of this matter alone. You can do whatever you want with me. Jiang Yandong's words made the person in charge of the club and Lu Hong angry. Did Jiang Yandong not feel that he was in the wrong at all? In any case, Yandong can't have that kind of relationship with Xiao Yan no matter what. As long as there is nothing between the two of you, the rumors will disappear automatically. Lu Hong nodded. That's right. At this time, the official Weibo account will post that the two of them are official teammates. As for the rest, let's not talk about it. In the next competition, Xiao Yan has to perform well. Also, other than gaming matters, don't interact with Yandong in private. Chapter 2024. After this incident slowly passes, the fans will forget about it. Wen Yunyang also agreed with such a method. Tong Hui, who had always been interested in Xiao Yan, also agreed. That's right. Other than training games and competitions, it's best that Xiao Yan and Yandong don't interact with each other in private. If Xiao Yan has any trouble, she can call the others in our team. We're all single, so no one will say anything if we help you. Everyone thought that this was a good decision. Xiao Yan felt a little uncomfortable, but she compromised in the end. She didn't want to be called a mistress, and she didn't want to see Jiang Yandong being called a jerk. If they didn't interact, then so be it. It was for everyone's good. Seeing that both of them agreed, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The manager of the club suddenly said, to be safe, after some time, why don't Xiao Yan develop a relationship with one of the other team members? That way, everyone will be even more certain that you and Jiang Yandong are just teammates working together. There's nothing between the two of you. After a certain period of time, you can break off this relationship. There won't be any losses for both sides. Many people agreed with the manager's suggestion. Especially people like Tong Hui and Wen Yunyang, who had feelings for Xiao Yan. However, Lu Hong frowned and disagreed. But other than helping the team members, training games, and researching plans, he couldn't interfere in other aspects. No, I object. Jiang Yandong didn't even think and said directly, this is unfair to both of us. The manager laughed and said, what's unfair about it? It's not real. It's just a couple announced to the public. You can interact with each other however you want in the team. At most, you'll interact with each other online. You're not some big star, and your fan base is there. They won't really go crazy and follow your private life. But if you interact with Xiao Yan in private, the consequences will be different. This was a warning to Jiang Yandong, telling him not to mess around. I think it's fine, Tong Hui said. Tong Hui said, this will prove your innocence, and you won't have to do anything. In the future, if both parties have someone they like, they can just use the excuse of not being on good terms to break up. Not many people will care about it. At most, people will talk about it a little. It sounds much better than being called a third party or a scumbag who betrays his wife. Xiao Yan really couldn't stand the word mistress. She immediately agreed, even though she felt very aggrieved. On the team's official Weibo, they made a statement stating that Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan are only partners. After that, they didn't say anything else. Lin Xian massaged Tang Guo's fingers as he explained what had happened on the internet. Jiang Yandong also gave him a surprise by announcing the annulment of the engagement. Now he could get along with Tang Guo openly. They're planning to use silence as a response. Tang Guo said calmly, this is also a good idea. No matter how you explain it, it's useless. The people won't listen. After a while, they'll slowly forget about this matter. If Jiang Yandong wins this year's international competition, then he'll only be the hero. Lin Xian saw Tang Guo's cold and indifferent expression and suddenly said, he might be able to win the international championship this year, but it's not certain next year. Next year's championship is mine, whether it's the team competition or the individual competition. It was all his. Chapter 2025. Hearing Lin Xian's serious words, Tang Guo pursed her lips and smiled, although she couldn't see the serious expression on his face. But she could feel the persistence and seriousness in his tone. She asked, Brother Xian, you seem to be very persistent about winning. No, I'm just more persistent about winning against Jiang Yandong, Lin Xian answered frankly. Lin Xian answered very calmly. He was already certain that the sound he heard in his dream was the sound of Tang Guo's blind stick hitting the ground. Every sound, every pause, every sound that entered his ears made him have no choice but to make a trip to this mortal world. His goal was only for her. Since he had made his feelings clear, and Jiang Yandong had announced the annulment of their engagement, when was he going to do it? Of course, he didn't think it was the right time to confess. He needed to confirm whether Tang Guo had completely forgotten about Jiang Yandong. Perhaps he could use step by step to walk into her heart, into her life, and into her life. He could test her step by step. As long as she didn't reject him, it meant that they were interested in each other, and he could confess his feelings. Brother Xian, why are you so persistent about winning against Jiang Yandong? Tang Guo asked directly. This made Lin Xian a little flustered. Of course, winning against Jiang Yandong was to let her know that Jiang Yandong was nothing, and that he was quite good. Jiang Yandong had entered the esports scene at the age of 14. He had just started this year, and next year, he would be joining a team to compete. If he won against Jiang Yandong, wouldn't it prove that he was better than Jiang Yandong? Jiang Yandong didn't care about her. He wanted to tell her that even if he stood in Jiang Yandong's position, she was still the most important in his heart. At this point, Lin Xian was stunned, not knowing what to do. Is this question very difficult? It's not difficult, Lin Xian quickly answered. Tang Guo smiled. Then why aren't you answering? System, of course you're afraid of being rejected. Who told you to inherit the original owner's persona and like Jiang Yandong so realistically? This guy was afraid, so he had no choice but to carefully plan step by step. As the saying goes, haste makes waste. Judging from Madam Host's intentions, she wanted to get into a relationship in advance. It was pretty good. Because this answer is somewhat difficult to say. Lin Xian said, if I answer, I'm afraid I won't be able to come here in the future. How could that be? I still need Brother Xian to help me recover my fingers. Lin Xian was originally pinching Tang Guo's knuckles. Suddenly, he wrapped her hand completely in his palm and asked in a low voice, what about this? Without waiting for Tang Guo's reply, he changed his position so that their palms were pressed together and their fingers were interlocked. Since she had asked this question, he couldn't deny it and dig a hole for himself. It would make it more difficult for him to confess in the future, right? Seeing that Tang Guo didn't say anything, he felt a little nervous. He was even more nervous than when he first came down from the mountain and came into contact with new things in the city. Xiao Guo. After a long time, Lin Xian didn't get a response from Tang Guo and couldn't help but call out. He didn't let go of her hand, afraid that if he did, she would run away. Brother Xian, how can you just hold a girl's hand when you're pursuing her? If I didn't know your character, I would have thought that you were being a hooligan. Hearing Tang Guo's sweet tone, Lin Xian finally breathed a sigh of relief. He slowly let go of her hand and massaged her knuckles again. Xiao Guo, do you mean that you won't object to my pursuit? Then Xiao Guo, how about you be my girlfriend? Chapter 2026. Then, Brother Xian, please answer my question first. Why do you insist on beating Jiang Yandong? Lin Xian answered without thinking. Because he didn't treat you well. I want to defeat him. I also want him to see the look of regret on his face when you become my girlfriend and I hold you in the palm of my hand. Tang Guo giggled, so that's how it is. Then, Brother Xian, you have to work hard. Jiang Yandong's ability is not bad. It's okay for the team competition, but it's different for the individual competition. It's all about one person's ability. I will win. Then, Xiao Guo, will you agree to be my girlfriend? Tang Guo nodded and smiled, I agree. When he heard her agree, Lin Xian felt an indescribable joy in his heart. Immediately, he wrapped her small hand in his palm and held it with a little force. This time, he really did it openly and openly. He didn't ask if Tang Guo still had Jiang Yandong in her heart. These days, he had gotten to know her a little. Even if she did, it would be gone soon. Actually, I've long forgotten about Jiang Yandong. Tang Guo took the initiative to say this, only when you don't care about someone will you be so indifferent. Brother Xian, what do you think? Hearing this, Lin Xian was even happier. He believed her words. Then, he asked a little further, then, Xiao Guo should like me, right? At least a little, right? If you don't like me a little, you probably won't agree. Tang Guo smiled, Brother Xian, you're just like what Xiao Tong said. You're a very smart person. Yes, I quite like you. Although it's not a lot, I still like you. In the future, I might slowly like you more. Then I'll fight for it. I'll fill your heart with love for me. That day, Madam Chen came over and saw the two of them sitting in front of the piano, playing a piano piece. She smiled with relief. She knew that this bald young man would definitely succeed. Seeing the two of them immersed in the piano, Madam Chen just put the prepared food on the table and didn't remind them. The piano piece would soon end, and the food would not get cold. Sure enough, when the piano piece ended, Tang Guo smelled the aroma and asked Lin Xian to take her to eat. On the table, Lin Xian found a note from Madam Chen, saying that she had something to do this afternoon and asked him to take care of Tang Guo. He pinched the note and threw it into the trash can. With a smile on his face, he led Tang Guo to her seat. Madam Chen has prepared a dish and a soup today. Lin Xian first told Tang Guo the name of the dish and described the color. Then he asked her, "What do you want to eat first?" Because Lin Xian was here, Madam Chen didn't prepare the food like before. She didn't cut it all into small pieces, so Tang Guo could put it directly into a bowl and eat it with a spoon. After all, she couldn't see. Even if the food was placed in her bowl, it wouldn't be easy for her to pick it up with her chopsticks and put it into her mouth. That was why she used that method. Because Madam Chen took care of everything, Jiang Yandong didn't have to worry at all. Not to mention, he patiently sat aside and helped Tang Guo to name the dishes and describe the color of the dishes. He then asked her what she wanted to eat. Even if Jiang Yandong was eating at home, Madam Chen would prepare two kinds of dishes. One was for Jiang Yandong, and the other was for Tang Guo. It was very small. Madam Chen's cooking was good. Even if it was small, it didn't affect the taste. Chapter 2027. However, every time she was outside, she would see Tang Guo holding a bowl and eating with a spoon. Then, she would see Jiang Yandong sitting at the side without asking her if she wanted to eat something else. She would feel unhappy. However, at that time, the original owner of this body liked Jiang Yandong too much. She thought of herself as a normal person and didn't care so much. Madam Chen didn't leave. Instead, she hid outside and secretly observed. She heard Lin Xian patiently tell Tang Guo the names of the dishes. She deliberately didn't make small pieces of food. She could tell that this bald guy was interested in Miss Xiaoguo. Miss Xiaoguo was such a good girl. If there was someone who loved her in this life, how good would that be? She just thought that this guy was good. Whether someone treated you well or not, it was often these small details that were the best indicator. After she told him the names of the dishes, she saw Lin Xian picking up food for Tang Guo. Seeing that Tang Guo wasn't able to eat, he put the food into her mouth and said, "Let me help you. That will delay Brother Xian's meal. I'll be full later and the food will be cold." Hearing this, Lin Xian was very happy. He said proudly, "I can multitask." "How can you multitask?" "I can use my right hand to pick up food for you and use my left hand to eat." Tang Guo was a little surprised. "You're that good?" "Of course. I'll put my phone aside and record it. You can ask Madam Chen later." "No, Brother Xian wouldn't lie to me." Hearing this, Lin Xian's heart warmed. He would never lie to her in this life. How could he bear to lie to her? He wasn't a dog like Jiang Yandong. Madam Chen hid at the side and watched in shock. Lin Xian used his right hand to feed Tang Guo and used his left hand to feed himself. The two of them were eating and laughing. In the end, she covered her mouth and laughed. She hurried away with tears in her eyes. She had to tell Sir and Madam about this. After taking 2 steps, Madam Chen went back. She took out her phone and recorded a short video before leaving, satisfied. This young man was qualified. Now, Sir and Madam should be able to focus on their research and not worry about Miss Xiaoguo's future. This young man was really good. It must be because Miss Xiaoguo was too kind that the heavens sent him here. After lunch, Lin Xian suggested watching a movie. He did not think that Tang Guo could not go to the movies just because she could not see. They could go to the couple's private room and watch the movie while explaining the movie to her. Both of them could feel the charm of the movie, and at the same time, it would not affect others. Tang Guo naturally agreed. Sure enough, this was the best way to be in a relationship. Seeing that Tang Guo was already immersed in love, the system smiled with relief. This guy was really getting more and more likable. Even if the other party was just a little bit more important to his host in the future, he wouldn't mind. After watching the movie, Lin Xian held her hand and went shopping. They went to the snack street to eat snacks and went to the mall to buy nice clothes and bags. They went to the counter to buy skincare products, perfume, and jewelry. Lin Xian's actions made Tang Guo feel that this guy was planning to make up for the first 19 years of not meeting her. Tang Guo's hand was tightly held by Lin Xian. Hearing that he was picking out lipstick for her, she hurriedly said, "Other than skincare products for washing your face, you can't use makeup." Chapter 2028. Of course, she didn't say that she didn't want to buy it. System, what a hypocrite. You just want to trick little bald brother into putting on lipstick for you. Xiao Guo, if you want to go out in the future, just let me know. I'll come and help you. Lin Xian was still a little nervous. He didn't know how to put on makeup, but putting on lipstick wasn't a problem. It seemed that he had to go back and ask Xiao Tong about it in the next few days. Then I'll have to trouble brother Xian. It's no trouble at all. Helping my girlfriend put on lipstick and draw her eyebrows is what I should do. As evening approached, Lin Xian hung all the bags on his body and even used one hand to hold Tang Guo's hand. Madame Chen calculated the time and finished preparing dinner. Seeing the two of them come back, she almost laughed out loud. This young man was really a treasure. He was actually picked up by her family's Miss Xiao Guo. Xiao Xian, I have something to do at home. Dinner is ready, please take care of Miss Xiao Guo. Madame Chen, go ahead. I'll take care of her. Lin Xian happily replied. Seeing Madame Chen leave with a smile, how could he not understand? After spending half a day happily, Lin Xian said goodbye and left. After returning to the Lin family, he didn't relax. Instead, he went to find Lin Tong and asked her for a favor. Brother Xian, it's so late. Don't you need your beauty sleep? Do you know how scary it is for a woman to stay awake at 10 at night? I remember that you always come home at 11. It's only 9:30. Xiao Tong, I need your help. Lin Tong asked curiously, what's the matter? I want to ask you about how to put on makeup. I feel that the tutorials on the internet aren't good enough. I thought about it and your skills are pretty good. Since we're family, it's best to ask you. Lin Tong was stunned. Her cousin needed to put on makeup. Brother, you're bald. Why do you need to put on makeup? Lin Xian didn't feel uncomfortable at all and said seriously, today, I confirmed my relationship with Xiao Guo and took her to buy makeup. In the future, when she goes out, I'll have to help her. Most importantly, I only know how to put on lipstick. Xiao Tong, only you can help me with this. Lin Tong was shocked. This was such a big thing, and this guy did it secretly. In the end, Lin Tong agreed. Not only that, she even called a few of her peers over to be her test subjects. For the next few nights, Lin Xian had been learning makeup techniques from Lin Tong and watching makeup tutorials. The few people of the same generation in the family were tormented by them every day. But thinking that this was a major event in Lin Xian's life, they endured and sacrificed themselves. Therefore, when he went on a date with Tang Guo again, Lin Xian carefully put on a peach blossom makeup for her. The system was stunned when it saw that skillful technique. She hurriedly told Tang Guo, Madam Host, this is amazing, this is amazing. This guy's makeup skills are really good. When he applies the eyeshadow for you, close your eyes and I'll show it to you. When Tang Guo closed her eyes, she saw Lin Xian's skillful makeup on the system screen. It's really pretty. Tang Guo couldn't help but praise. Her boyfriend was really outstanding. Not only did he put on makeup, Lin Xian also put on beautiful fake nails for Tang Guo and combed her hair nicely. The system showed Tang Guo the photo. It was really pretty. Although it wasn't good to praise herself like this, she was really pretty. Let's go. This time, Lin Xian still brought Tang Guo to watch Jiang Yandong's competition. Before this, Jiang Yandong's team had been victorious and had defeated many teams. Today's competition was the last one in the country. The champion would represent the country to participate in the international competition. He had said before that he wouldn't miss any of Jiang Yandong's competitions. But it was his first time holding such a beautiful girlfriend's hand and going over in such a high-profile manner. When the two of them appeared at the entrance of the competition venue, they attracted a lot of attention. Many people didn't dare to recognize that the person Lin Xian was holding was Tang Guo. They secretly took a photo, intending to ask if it was true. Also, was that handsome bald guy Tang Guo's new boyfriend? Chapter 2029. For today's competition, Lin Tong did not insist on following Lin Xian. She left some space for the two of them. Lin Xian carefully held Tang Guo's hand as they walked into the competition venue. The people around them secretly watched them. After all, Jiang Yandong's matter had blown up in the past few months. As a result, many people recognized Tang Guo. Even though she had put on beautiful peach blossom makeup, they could almost confirm that this beautiful girl was indeed Tang Guo after observing her closely. However, they did not know who the bald guy holding her hand with a gentle smile on his face was. But from the way the two of them acted so intimately, everyone knew that they were definitely a couple. Seeing the way Lin Xian carefully helped Tang Guo to her seat, he really cared for her. The surrounding girls were a little envious. Although the bald guy did not have any hair, he was handsome. Even without hair, he was still handsome. Not only was he handsome, but he was also so gentle and considerate to his girlfriend. How many boys could do this in this day and age? They did not delve into why Tang Guo had a new boyfriend. Counting the time, it had been a few months since her engagement with Jiang Yandong was officially called off. It had been a few months. Wasn't it normal for her to meet such a gentle boyfriend and develop a romantic relationship? Thinking back to the month when the engagement was called off, Tang Guo had recorded a very intimate moment between her and Jiang Yandong. They felt that something was amiss. Since the engagement was already called off, why did she still record that kind of video? The more they thought about it, the more they felt that something was amiss. Could it be that the club had asked her to compromise because Jiang Yandong had been scolded so badly? Thinking of this, many people felt a little displeased. At the same time, he also remembered one thing. The two deleted videos of Tang Guo, although many people saved them on the internet, she still deleted them. They did not suspect that Tang Guo had an ulterior motive for clarifying to the audience that it was a misunderstanding. There could only be one reason, and that was to help Jiang Yandong. There was no anger in their hearts, only pity. Therefore, seeing that Lin Xian, her new boyfriend, was so nice to her, those who knew her felt happy. Speaking of which, I've never seen Jiang Yandong holding Tang Guo's hand like this before. Now that you mention it, I also realize that she and Jiang Yandong have never been so close. Maybe it was right to cancel the engagement. Not only were there people who were interested in divination talking about it, but there was also a heated discussion online about the picture of Tang Guo being led into the competition by Lin Xian. At this time, Lin Xian was commentating the competition with Tang Guo. Neither of them was in the mood to pay attention to what was happening on the internet. Xiao Yan had also adjusted her mentality. Although her cooperation was not as perfect as during training, she did not make any mistakes and was not stiff. It was still worth watching. Because of her performance, the fans' resistance against her was slightly reduced. However, in the live stream room, there were still a lot of people boycotting Xiao Yan. They wanted Xiao Yan to get out of the esports scene, and some even more vicious words appeared. Because of the previous incident, the club had also learned to be smart. Before the competition ended, they made a rule that all the members were not allowed to touch their phones to avoid being affected by the strange comments on the road. Unsurprisingly, Jiang Yandong's team won again this time. Because the other team was also very strong, they had a total of 3 matches. Chapter 2030. Jiang Yandong's team had won the first and third matches to obtain the final victory. As for Linli's team, they had won third place in the domestic competition. This result wasn't bad. After all, their team was either third or second place. They had never been able to win the championship. Linli's team wasn't discouraged. They played esports for fun, not for fame and fortune. They were born at a place where others couldn't even reach. They entered this industry because they liked it. However, they still felt a little regretful if they didn't win at least one championship. Now, the whole world was playing this game. Hence, in every country, only the team that won the championship could participate in the international competition. There were no exceptions. Linli's team had 2 regrets. First, they didn't win a domestic championship. Second, they didn't participate in an international competition. If they could fulfill these 2 wishes, they wouldn't have any regrets in the esports industry. Lin Xian and Tang Guo had discussed this. At that time, he had even said to Tang Guo, "I think that Brother Lei and the rest will be able to fulfill this wish next year." Not only that, but as long as Jiang Yandong is in the esports industry, the champions in the country will definitely be me and Brother Lei. When Tang Guo had heard this, she had only laughed and said, "I believe in Brother Xian. As long as Brother Xian is in the esports industry, the championship will be yours." At that moment, when Lin Xian heard this, he felt that he had to practice martial arts and the game seriously. To practice martial arts, one had to maintain good physical fitness and the flexibility of their joints. They also had to do more math problems and train their reflexes so that they wouldn't fall behind younger players in the future. Everyone knew that in this industry, the younger the better. The career of an esports player was very short. Under normal circumstances, they would retire before the age of 30. Many players were below the age of 25. After playing for a few years, they either went behind the scenes, became streamers, or changed careers. This was an industry that depended on one's youth. However, it was different for him. His inner strength and martial arts could slow down the aging of his body. Doing math problems could keep his mind sharp and not stiff and slow down his reflexes. Lin Xian felt that he had too many things to do. After the competition, Lin Xian didn't want to bring Tang Guo to squeeze in with the crowd. He was afraid that she would be squeezed. Therefore, the 2 of them sat with their fingers interlocked, not in a hurry at all. Even though many people turned to look at them, they still whispered to each other, intending to wait for the others to leave before going out. When most of the people had left, the 2 of them became very conspicuous. The members of Jiang Yandong's battle team all discovered the existence of the 2. Seeing the intimate appearance of the 2, they all had different expressions. Xiao Yan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw this. Did Tang Guo have a new boyfriend? If that was the case, it would be impossible for her to reconcile with Jiang Yandong. Tong Hui merely glanced at him before looking away in disdain. If it weren't for the fact that he was in a good mood today and that Lu Hong was glaring at him, he probably would have said a few words. Forget it, let's not talk about it today, lest it spoils everyone's mood. It would be the international competition soon. Players from other countries would come to their place, so they wouldn't make the coach angry. As for Jiang Yandong, he had a complicated look in his eyes. At a glance, he noticed that Tang Guo was different. She had become prettier. Her makeup today was very beautiful. Chapter 2031. The dress she was wearing was very fitting, as if it had been tailor-made for her. She was also wearing a pair of very beautiful purple pearl earrings, which suited her very well. There was also a very beautiful crystal pendant around her neck. There was also one hanging on her wrist. It was a bracelet with many gemstones. Paired with those half-length dresses, it was really very beautiful. What was even more dazzling was that on her originally pink fingernails, there were actually very beautiful fake fingernails. They were shining, and he had to look away. He still couldn't resist looking at her feet. Sure enough, he also found something different. She was actually wearing a pair of small high heels. Ever since she lost her sight, she had always been wearing simple flats. Because she couldn't see, it was difficult for her to walk in other shoes. For a moment, Jiang Yandong didn't know what to say to such a bright Tanggua. Unconsciously, he walked towards Tanggua's position. Lu Hong was afraid that something would happen, so he quickly followed. Since he had already seen her, he had to at least say hello. Just as he was about to say hello to Tanggua, he couldn't help but look at Lin Xian. Before he could speak, Tanggua spoke first. "Are you brother Yan Dong and coach Lu Hong?" When he heard Tanggua call him brother Yan Dong again, Jiang Yandong suddenly realized that this, brother Yan Dong, felt different from when she called him before. It was too calm, too plain. In the past, every time she called out to him, he could feel the boundless affection and joy in her sweet voice. But now, she called him brother Yan Dong, as if it was just a title for him. She didn't change the way she called him, but she changed the relationship between them. It was also this title that made Jiang Yandong realize that the little girl who had been by his side since he was young and liked to call him brother Yan Dong didn't like him anymore. Yes, he understood. She didn't like him anymore. Otherwise, she wouldn't be standing in front of him so calmly. Her expression was calm, and she greeted him generously. Her hand was held by another person. He didn't have any intention of showing off. It was just a simple greeting to an acquaintance. Jiang Yandong's body stiffened. He stood in place and replied, "It's me. Brother Xian just told me about your performance today. It was just as exciting as before. In the upcoming international competition, you have to work hard and win glory for the country." Hearing such pure blessings, Jiang Yandong didn't feel good. He just couldn't stand it. She really did not like him anymore. The way she liked him was now incomparably deep in his mind. He could instantly recall her infatuated appearance. Jiang Yandong quickly shook his head. In fact, he wasn't that reluctant to break off the engagement. He had to admit that the reason he got engaged to her was not because he liked her, but because he felt guilty. "Xiaogua, is this your boyfriend?" Lu Hong saw that Jiang Yandong's expression was not right and hurriedly asked, trying to wake Jiang Yandong up. Now that the two of them were over, it wouldn't be good for either of them to be involved with each other. "Yes, this is Lin Xian. He's my boyfriend now." Tanggua introduced him naturally. "Next year, he'll be participating in the esports competition too." Lu Hong nodded and didn't take this matter to heart. However, when he saw the change in Tanggua and looked at the dazed Jiang Yandong, he understood that Tanggua had made the right choice this time. It was easy to tell whether a woman in love was doing well from her appearance. Chapter 2032. After Lin Xian left with Tanggua, Jiang Yandong was still a little despondent. Lu Hong patted him on the shoulder. "Why? Are you regretting it?" "No, as long as she can find her own happiness, that's all that matters." He could tell that Tanggua was happier than ever today. She was happier than when she could still see. The better she was now, the more upset he felt. It turned out that even without her eyes, she could still be so radiant. The person who could make her radiant was actually that Lin Xian. "Jiang Yandong, are you okay?" Xiao Yan also came over and asked with concern. "You should be relieved now. Tanggua has found her own happiness." Don't miss the past anymore. I know. Lu Hong didn't want Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong to get too close. He waved his hand and said, let's go back first. There's still a celebration later. Xiao Yan, Lu Hong whispered to Xiao Yan. The international competition is approaching. You and Jiang Yandong should be careful in public. Don't get too close. It's easy to be used against you. You won again this time. Before this, I'm afraid that they will find an excuse to make a fuss. When that happens, it won't be good for you and Jiang Yandong. The team that Lu Hong was talking about was the one that had lost to their team today. The team's code name was. Of course, that wasn't the full name, but people in the esports industry all called the other team a team. And Jiang Yandong's team had 2 letters for its abbreviation, S. Originally, there was only one abbreviation, S. After Jiang Yandong joined, he created an undefeated legend. The club decided to give Jiang Yandong unlimited glory and added his code name, S, to the team's abbreviation. Xiao Yan heard Lu Hong's words. Although she felt a little aggrieved, she still nodded and agreed. Recently, she and Jiang Yandong had been working well together. Although there were people scolding her online every day, she still gained many fans who wished her well. It was also these fans' comfort that supported her. Thinking about her grandfather, she felt sad again. That matter was very complicated. Previously, she had secretly gone to see her grandfather. The things that his grandfather had stolen had a wide range of implications. If he really wanted to be sentenced, it would probably take at least 1.5 years to come out. If she could find those treasures and hand them over, her crime could be reduced. If she could win the international championship this time, she would receive a large sum of money. Some things could also be bought with money. As for the items that couldn't be bought back, she planned to take some time to look for them after the competition. No matter what method she used, she would find those items and reduce her grandfather's crime. He was her only family member. Seeing that Xiao Yan was unhappy, Tong Hui assumed that she was unhappy because of Tang Guo's appearance. When he saw the comments about Tang Guo's new boyfriend on the internet, he couldn't help but log into his Smurf account and post a comment. I think that Tang Guo was just pretending to be deeply in love with Jiang Yandong to gain everyone's sympathy. Otherwise, how could she have found a new boyfriend in just 3 months? Don't be fooled by her. Even if she's blind and weak, it doesn't mean that she's a good person. She's always been infatuated with Jiang Yandong. How could she have a new boyfriend in just 3 months? This comment was quickly discussed by many people. For a moment, some people were led astray. They believed Tong Hui's words and really thought that Tang Guo was a half-hearted and pretentious person. Chapter 2033. In an instant, a portion of the netizens began to criticize Tang Guo. The system caught this immediately. Even though Tang Guo was walking around with the bald guy and eating ice cream, it couldn't help but remind her. Is that so? Yes. Many people are saying that the host is pretentious and pretending to be weak to gain sympathy. Who did it? Tongzi, I didn't hurt anyone's interests, especially Team W's people. They probably wouldn't attack me. If they wanted to attack me, they would only use my weakness and pitifulness to attack Jiang Yandong. Find out who did it. Of course, such a small matter couldn't stump the system. It didn't take long for it to find the culprit. Madam Host, it's Tong Hui. So it's him. He always finds me an eyesore. This person is really annoying. This time, he actually provoked me directly. Before she could say anything else, the system's voice sounded again. Madam Host, there's a new situation. Someone who claims to be your fan posted a video in the social media. Currently, many VIPs have reposted it. What video? It's the video of Lu Hongxiao discussing things in the cafe. There's also the video of you going to Jiang Yandong's club and talking to those people. Anyway, the video of you helping Jiang Yandong compromise and your voice are all in that video. Now, many people are watching it and discussing it. Tang Guo almost laughed out loud. She just wanted to ask Tongzi to help her play 2 videos. She didn't expect that someone would think of the same thing. They acted so quickly. It seemed like they wanted to use her to attack Jiang Yandong. Look, Tong Huai's good deed backfired in less than half an hour. It was obvious that people shouldn't do bad things that hurt others. Otherwise, even looking at someone directly in the eye might backfire on them. Indeed, Tong Huai, who had just finished eating and went to the washroom, came back and realized that the atmosphere wasn't right. After knowing the reason, he quickly went online to look at the videos. They were both blurry and unclear. In any case, he could see who the person was and hear what the voice was saying. His expression immediately turned ugly. He looked at the comments and the team's official Weibo account. Jiang Yandong, Xiao Yan, and even their entire team, except for the people who had tried to persuade Tang Guo that day, had all been attacked. Everyone was scolding them for being shameless for bullying a blind little girl. They were clearly the ones in the wrong, but in the end, a little girl had to stand up and clean up for them. Tong Huai slumped weakly in his seat under the torrent of abuse. And with his movements, it was almost impossible to watch. Everyone was scolding him for his cheap mouth. They didn't expect him to be such a person. It was really disgusting to scold someone who said such things. He watched helplessly as his fans continued to drop. The image that he had of an honest and upright man collapsed in an instant. As for Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan, they were better off. After all, he had been scolded on and off for several months. He was the scum, and Xiao Yan was the third. No one was surprised and thought that this was expected. Chapter 2034. With the help of the system, people quickly found out about Tong Huai's alternate account. Then, they were shocked to find out that the person who first expressed his dissatisfaction with Tang Guo and caused Tang Guo to be scolded by so many people was actually Tong Huai's alternate account. Coupled with the video, they instantly concluded that Tong Huai was a person with bad morals and a cheap mouth. Those who were still doubtful no longer had any doubts. That was because Tong Huai's tone was exactly the same as what he had said in the video. It was too easy to identify. Now, everyone was happily eating a big melon. This reduced the number of people who attacked Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan. Everyone went to scold Tong Huai's account. This cheap mouth. A big guy like him actually dared to bully a blind girl. Xiao Guo had wronged herself in order to help Jiang Yandong get through a difficult time. The club asked her to delete the video, so she did. They asked her to record another video to prove that she and Jiang Yandong had cleared up the misunderstanding, so she did it. When they arrived at the club, Tong Huai still said those nasty things. If it had happened to any of them, they wouldn't have been able to tolerate it. They didn't scold Tang Guo because she had done all this. She didn't intend to continue with Jiang Yandong. Instead, she wanted him to consider breaking up. It was clear that she was already disappointed in this relationship and didn't want to continue. She also understood that her efforts wouldn't yield results. Combined with the time Jiang Yandong had said that the engagement was annulled, it meant that she had broken up with Jiang Yandong after that one time. Since they had broken up and Jiang Yandong didn't care about her and it had already been more than 3 months, why couldn't she find a new relationship? Could it be that Jiang Yandong was a deity that had descended to the mortal world? She had left Jiang Yandong, yet she still had to stay by his side. Her new relationship with Jiang Yandong was a mistake. Was she not loyal to Jiang Yandong? That didn't make sense. The more they thought about it, the angrier the netizens became. They scolded Jiang Yandong, Xiao Yan, Tong Huai, and the team's club. Of course, Coach Lu Hong couldn't avoid being scolded as well. Compared to the embarrassment of the others, Lu Hong wasn't that angry about the abuse. In retrospect, he felt that these people were right to scold him. After that, he watched the video in the coffee shop no less than 5 times. He started to hate himself in the video. He used to be an esports player with dreams. Later on, when he got older, his ability could not keep up with the younger people. He did not want to leave the industry, so he stayed and became a coach. For the sake of victory, for the sake of not affecting the competition, for the sake of their teammates' reputation, they actually let a weak girl block for them. The more he thought about it, the more upset he felt. When the members of the battle team found out that Tong Hui was the one who had caused all the commotion, they all looked at him strangely. Although they didn't say much, they were very dissatisfied with Tong Hui. Tong Hui was naturally criticized, but he didn't think he was wrong. However, at this time, he also understood that he could not face them head-on. When the person in charge scolded him, he just listened. He didn't say a word and remained silent throughout. In addition, his ability was not bad and he played well in the first round. Basically, in the first 4 minutes, he was able to steadily defend the tower and provide support. His technique was also not bad. The roster was also reported. Unless the player had an irresistible factor, they were not allowed to change players midway. The person in charge didn't dare to criticize too harshly, but he was holding back his anger and was especially unhappy. Chapter 2035. However, Tong Hui's life was not easy. Every day, people would send him private messages, scold him on Weibo, and scold him on his social media account. He even became a trending topic because of this. It wasn't just one trending topic. In the past, many celebrities would have begged for such a spot, but he didn't want to be on it at all. The topic was about the honest boy Tong Hui, who was actually a scumbag with a foul mouth. Tong Hui's livestream broke his persona, and he was so angry that he trembled. The most despicable thing was that a bunch of people commented that they really wanted to tear his mouth apart. There were even people who photoshopped his mouth into all sorts of things. It was simply infuriating. One of the photos that left the deepest impression on him was that he spat out a mouthful of feces every time he said a word. He was so angry that he wanted to send a lawyer's letter. However, that photo was all over the internet. In this era of big data, there was no way to send a lawyer's letter to everyone. There was no way to pursue the matter. Those things were just for scaring people. Ordinary people were happy and weren't afraid of that at all. Tong Hui's days were going crazy. Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan were also scolded badly. Fortunately, the club's investor valued Jiang Yandong's ability and stepped in to suppress the public opinion. That was why it wasn't as bad as before. The suppression could only suppress the trending topic. Those who deserved to be scolded could be scolded anywhere. The club was afraid that the public opinion would affect the three of them, so they informed them to go into closed-door training. They couldn't interact with the internet for a while. No matter what, they had to compete in the international competition first. Once they won, they could plan the rest later. Tang Guo had a more comfortable life. She had the bald guy to accompany her every day. Lin Xian had to train in the morning and would only come in the afternoon. Later, he asked if she would be bored at home alone and if she wanted to go to the club to play. Tang Guo agreed. When she arrived at the club, she realized that Lin Xian had specially prepared a seat for her. There were also some custom-made books that could be touched by hand. There was also a voice-controlled machine. What was even scarier was that a few days later, Lin Xian told her that he had bought a piano and placed it in the club. "Won't it affect your training?" "How could it? We're all wearing earplugs. Besides, the soothing piano sound doesn't affect us at all. It can even be used as background music." Tang Guo was just asking casually. After all, she had practiced sound techniques before. She could make the music become whatever she wanted. When no one minded, she began to play the piano in the club. After everyone heard this, they felt that it was better than expected. Especially when they were playing games, they realized that listening to her piano music could actually calm their anxiety and calm them down. It was especially magical. Ah, Xian, how did you find such a good girlfriend? Lin Xian smiled and said, maybe we were lucky. The first time we went to watch Jiang Yandong compete, we were sitting next to each other. After that, there were all kinds of coincidences, and we sat next to each other every day, Lin Tong added. I really didn't expect Brother Xian to be the alpha wolf, always waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Lin Xian said a little embarrassedly, I didn't think too much at first. I just wanted to help her. They knew Lin Xian's character very well. He was just joking. It's really a pity. This was what everyone in the club was thinking. Even if she couldn't see, she could still play the piano so well. It was a pity that such a genius would never be able to stand on the stage and play such a beautiful melody. Chapter 2036. Lin Xian looked at Tang Guo, who was sitting in front of the piano. She seemed to be immersed in the beautiful melody. At that moment, he had an impulse. He really wanted to see her sitting on the stage, radiating light from her body. Who said that if you couldn't participate in the competition, you couldn't stand on the stage? Is the Lin family sponsoring the international competition this time? Lin Xian suddenly asked. Lin Li nodded. Yes. Ever since we started this esports team, although the elders at home said that we can do whatever we want, they will still support us when we need to. Even if we haven't participated in an international competition before, they still have to give us face. Who knows, maybe one day, it will be a member of the Lin family who will go up on stage. Moreover, for an international competition, once they won, they would win glory for their country. Sponsoring such an event didn't cost much. It could be seen as support for a new industry. With advertising and fame, there was no harm in it. What do you guys say? Let Xiaoguo go up on stage and play the piano for everyone. Lin Xian said what was in his heart. I think that the melody she plays is very beautiful. It will make people immerse themselves in it. Inserting a program during the opening song shouldn't affect the competition, right? Lin Li, Lin Tong, and the others looked at each other, then nodded and said in unison, yes. Ah, Xian, you're really something. No wonder you were able to get such a beautiful girlfriend. They didn't know when this flirting skill of his had been developed. He had taught her how to put on makeup, bought her a piano, made her a custom music score, and now he wanted her to play the opening song. No girl could escape this kind of gentleness, okay? There's no problem with this. But you still have to discuss it with Xiaoguo first. What if she's not willing? System, you're thinking too much. His host will definitely be willing. Host, your big cutie is getting more and more considerate. He was so considerate that he couldn't feel any jealousy. He could only wish him well and hope that he could continue to be so cute. When Lin Xian mentioned this to Tang Guo, she immediately agreed. The original owner also felt regret about not being able to return to the stage, but she didn't regret it. But as a person who loved the piano, it was always sad that he could never play it or compose that beautiful melody himself. Before the international competition, the Lin group suddenly said that they wanted to insert an opening song. During the rehearsal, the girl who played the piano would come over. Of course, they wouldn't refuse such a small request. When they saw that it was Tang Guo, they were all shocked. They knew about the huge commotion on the internet a while ago. They were well aware of what had happened between Jiang Yandong and Tang Guo. They felt pity for this young girl. She had lost too much. But she had never thought that she would be able to stand on the stage again and play the piano. The results of the rehearsal were surprisingly satisfactory. They had even discussed with Tang Guo if there were any more intense songs. Of course, Tang Guo was prepared. He played a few songs for them, and in the end, he even played the game's theme song. Hearing this, they were extremely excited. This opening would definitely be very exciting. Just as they expected, when the international competition started, the stage was surrounded by smoke. Tang Guo was wearing a white dress and sitting in front of the piano. Chapter 2037. Her slender fingers landed on the piano keys. When her hand fell, the beautiful melody instantly spread to the ears of the audience present and the live broadcast audience. At that moment, they all quieted down. When her melody became more and more passionate, they also became excited. Music was so magical. It could make people resonate and immerse them in it. They could experience the beauty of heaven, the happiness of the world, and the grief and anger of hell. At this moment, Amen experienced passion, joy, excitement, courage, and struggle. When the song ended, the audience was still immersed. After a few seconds, they reacted and warmly applauded. At this time, the smoke dissipated and they saw the face of the girl sitting in front of the piano. They were really shocked. Wasn't this Tang Guo? At this time, Lin Xian had already gone on stage and held Tang Guo's hand. He also held a rose in his hand and placed it in her hand. This romantic scene caused the fans present to scream. Tang Guo had found a very considerate boyfriend. This was known to everyone. And the female fans all realized a problem. Ever since Tang Guo had a new boyfriend, she had put on makeup, accessories, dresses, and high heels. This is what it means to be a girl in love. When Tang Guo and Jiang Yandong were engaged, such a thing didn't happen. Zinbei Chinese Network. Nepsp, M. Com, and every time he met Tang Guo, she was alone. It seemed that other than helping Jiang Yandong clarify those things, he was never by her side. For a time, they were very subtle about Jiang Yandong, even though today was the start of the international competition. Although today was not the time for Jiang Yandong's team to compete, they still wanted to see what kind of expression Jiang Yandong had at this time. Zinbei Chinese Network. Nepsp, M. Com. Today was the start of the competition, and all the teams would show up. When Jiang Yandong saw Tang Guo being held by Lin Xian from the stage, he was also full of complicated feelings. So Xiao Guo could play the piano. The fact that Tang Guo could play the piano caused a sensation. After today's competition, she was brought out by Lin Xian. Immediately, a few reporters came to interview her. Because Lin Xian was the young master of the Lin family, they did not dare to go too far. They only asked about Tang Guo's hand in a very euphemistic way. After all, the destruction of a generation of geniuses had caused a huge sensation. Seeing Tang Guo's good performance today, they could not help but ask. Moreover, she could play such a fast and passionate melody when she could not see. It was obvious how many times she had recited the score. No one knew how long she had to memorize it. Reporter, Miss Tang, may I ask if your hand has recovered? Tang Guo, my fingers have completely recovered. Reporter, oh, Miss Tang has been receiving treatment all these years. Tang Guo, I didn't receive any other treatment. It was all because I met Brother Xian. He used his ancestral massage technique and came to massage my joints every day. He didn't miss a single day. It took 3 months. The reporter was a little shocked. Was that true? Reporter, Miss Tang has changed a lot in these 3 months. We remember that you used to wear flat shoes when you went out. You rarely put on makeup. You also chose the simplest style of clothes. Now that you're dressed up so well, I almost didn't recognize you. Tang Guo's lips curved. This was a good question. She was worried that she would not be able to share with others how capable her brother Xian was. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about. Chapter 2038. She had always thought that reporters were annoying, but today's reporter was especially cute. She asked all the questions she wanted to say. Tang Guo, because I couldn't do all this on my own. Even if I asked someone to do it, it would be very troublesome. But Brother Xian didn't find it troublesome. He patiently helped me dress up. People who know me all say that Brother Xian dressed me up very beautifully. Do you think so? Reporter, Miss Tang is indeed very beautiful. Today's makeup is very exquisite, and the dress is very ethereal. The accessories you're wearing match the dress very well. The reporter quickly reacted. What did Tang Guo say? Did Lin Xian do all this for her? She quickly asked again. When she got a confirmation, she was shocked. She thought that Lin Xian could still pick out clothes, accessories, and shoes. Even if it was a comb, he could accept it. But she couldn't believe that Lin Xian was the one who combed Tang Guo's hair today. He was the one who did the makeup. The reporter's head was a little dizzy. After getting a confirmation, she staggered away, still thinking about what had just happened. In the car, on the way back, she talked to the cameraman. Do you know where to get a boyfriend like Lin Xian? I also want to get one home. I work hard and serve the country. Will the country give me a boyfriend like that? Nepsp, M. Calm the cameraman, and the cameraman didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at their reporter girl's expectant face, they were a little embarrassed to say that the country couldn't afford a boyfriend like that. They shouldn't waste the country's resources on such personal matters. They should trouble the country to do it for them. They were all adults. They had to learn how to find a boyfriend themselves. When this gaming entertainment news was broadcasted, it had already snatched the top search of the international competition. It didn't come down for a few days. It was still up there. In an instant, Lin Xian boyfriends were all over the internet. The girls all asked everyone they saw if the country would give them a Lin Xian today. If they studied hard and contributed to society, would they be rewarded with a Lin Xian boyfriend in the future? If they worked hard, could the company give them a Lin Xian-type boyfriend to show some concern for them on account of their hard work? Even for a day. As long as they had one, they would die in this company. Jiang Yandong and the others also finished their closed-door training. Naturally, they saw the trending topics, especially the interview with Tang Guo. He didn't know how to express his feelings. Later, someone even exposed that Tang Guo's music score was personally customized by Lin Xian. These music scores were only suitable for people like Tang Guo who had poor eyesight. This kind of boyfriend really made the people on the internet jealous. They could feel the smell even through the screen. Now that everyone was immersed in the topic of Lin Xian's boyfriend, the number of people scolding Jiang Yandong and the others had decreased. Xin One Chinese Network. But Jiang Yandong was not happy. The better Tang Guo was, the worse he felt. It wasn't that he couldn't bear to see her living a good life, but he realized that she was living a better life without him. This clearly showed that he had wronged her and treated her harshly. However, this sadness was quickly alleviated by Xiao Lian's comfort. Lu Hong was also scrolling through the trending searches and watching videos. Looking at the dazzling Tang Guo, he sighed. Jiang Yandong really owed this girl too much. Since he liked her, he had to think of ways to treat her well and help her realize her dreams. I want to chat with more like-minded people about. Chapter 2039. In the following period of time, the internet did not pay much attention to this international competition. But every time a match opened, Tang Guo would go up and play the opening song. Through this incident, everyone knew Lin Xian's identity. This was the young madam of the Lin family supporting them, and it sounded so good. As a result, the remaining tickets were quickly sold out. Everyone was not just fighting for tickets for the competition, but also to experience what it was like to be a lemon spirit. During this period, Lin Xian's parents met Tang Guo. It was Lin Xian who asked her if she was willing to go back and meet them. Of course, Tang Guo was willing to meet them. She had been dating Lin Xian for a few months, and the Lin family did not stop them. It was clear that they did not object to them. She did not know that the Lin couple was so happy that they did a background check on her. They knew that her parents were very busy and contributed to the country, and that she used to be a very outstanding girl. Of course, she was still outstanding now. Now that their son was no longer a monk and knew how to flirt with girls, they were naturally very happy. As for her eyes, that was not a problem. They even planned to invest more in medicine in the future. Perhaps in the future, when the technology was more advanced, they would be able to cure this girl's eyes. Even if it could not be cured, it would not stop them from liking this girl. It was not difficult to memorize one piece of music, but it would be hard to memorize 10 or more pieces. During this period of time, Tanguo played a different piece every time. Sometimes, she would play several times in a row. There were even people who invited her to participate in various shows. She was not interested in participating in those reality shows, but she would not reject some of the opening and closing performances if they were of a larger scale. But every time, Lin Xian would accompany her. Just like that, the international competition ended. The winning team was still Jiang Yandong's team, although it was a narrow victory this time. It was not that there was a problem, but the other team members were also very outstanding. Fortunately, they did not make any mistakes, or they would have lost this time. Everyone had enough. They had enough of the sweet love between Tanguo and Lin Xian. Later, they dragged Jiang Yandong, Xiao Yan, and Tong Hui out for a walk. Of course, the one who was scolded the most this time was Jiang Yandong. Jiang Yandong was probably the only person who could win the competition and get scolded. I'll give you guys a break first. Have fun and rest for a while before you start training again. However, don't forget to familiarize yourself with what you need to familiarize yourself with every day. Take 2 hours to practice your hands. Don't get rusty, Lu Hong said. Then, the club had a rare moment of peace. After the players left, Lu Hong was called by the person in charge. Lu Hong, help me analyze the situation. The members of the other teams are mainly top laners and support players, especially the top laners. Find them for me. If they're suitable, offer them a high price when the time comes. When Lu Hong heard this, he understood that the person in charge was holding a grudge. Last time, Tong Hui had not given him any face, and that had caused him to feel aggrieved. After all, if it wasn't for Tong Hui, the team wouldn't be in so much trouble. Lu Hong nodded. All right. However, he still admired Tong Hui's skills. It was just that his character wasn't good enough. Xiao Yan left the club and disappeared. Netcomputer/M. With the prize money, she naturally went to buy those things. Although she had borrowed quite a lot from her teammates, those things were expensive and she couldn't buy much. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about transmigration, female supporting character, calm down. Talking about life, looking for confidence peak. Chapter 2040. The Lin's Club also planned to have a holiday for everyone to rest. Because the next time they started training, they would welcome a new member, Lin Xian. Although Lin Xian had been training with them, he joined in the middle of the last season and started from scratch, so he didn't have a chance to play. They also had to compete, so they didn't have much time to train with him. When they came back from the holiday, they would start formal training. A training centered around Lin Xian was about to begin. During the holiday, Lin Xian decided to take Tang Guo on a trip, just the two of them. This fake Tang Guo had a good life. While dating the bald guy, the system reported to her about Xiao Yan's situation. After Xiao Yan received the prize money, she borrowed money from a few close friends in the team and went to buy the things that old man Xiao had stolen. As for how she found out about the whereabouts of the things, after all, she was also a member of the circle of talented people, so she could ask around. After many conflicts, Xiao Yan could only borrow money from Jiang Yandong, Tong Hui, and Wen Yunyang. The others probably wouldn't lend money to her, so she couldn't ask for it. The three of them did lend her money. When Yunyang lent her 3 million yuan, and Jiang Yandong knew that she was doing it for her grandfather, so he lent her more than half of his money, which totaled up to tens of millions. When Tang Guo heard this, she almost choked. Jiang Yandong's family wasn't bad, and he was good at making money. After all, he would occasionally take on some endorsements, but he didn't take many of them, so he made money relatively quickly. But he lent money to a teammate all of a sudden, and they weren't even boyfriend and girlfriend, and he didn't even write an IOU. She suspected that Jiang Yandong's brain was damaged. As for Tong Hui, when he heard that Xiao Yan needed help to save her grandfather, they all went bankrupt. They all thought that her family had gone bankrupt and was in debt. She had borrowed the money to pay off her debts or to make a comeback. They never thought that Xiao Yan had borrowed the money to buy back the stolen goods and hand them over to the country to reduce her grandfather's sentence. Moreover, Tong Hui came from a well-to-do family. Plus, he earned a lot of money from the competition. If it weren't for his bad reputation, many people would have approached him to endorse their products after the competition. But in the end, he still lent Xiao Yan 5 million yuan, which was not a small amount. The system then described to Tang Guo that Tong Hui was very interested in Xiao Yan. If it wasn't for the fact that she was busy, he would have asked her out to have fun. He wanted to take advantage of the holidays to develop their relationship. After all, he did Xiao Yan a big favor, didn't he? Xiao Yan had spent all her money in less than 10 days after she disappeared. Those people were all cunning. She had to spend several times the price to buy back a part of it. She couldn't buy the rest because she didn't have enough money. Left with no choice, she could only return to her old profession, planning to steal these things back. Those things weren't clean to begin with. Wouldn't it be fine as long as she handed them over to the country? But the rich people nowadays were all smart. With so many high-tech products, they would definitely have all kinds of defensive measures. Xiao Yan was just flesh and blood. She wasn't a god. In front of high-tech products, even old man Xiao had to be careful, let alone her. Hence, she risked her life and put in a lot of effort to go there, but she didn't succeed even once. She was even injured all over. Once, she was chased by many people. Her injuries were too serious. She escaped to a certain place and urgently called Jiang Yandong. At that time, Tong Hui was also with Jiang Yandong. When the two of them heard that she was in danger, they rushed over without a word. At this point, it was almost time for the two clubs to resume their training. When the training was about to resume, Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan became popular again. The reason was that someone took a photo of Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan together. Originally, everyone had forgotten about it. Now, weren't they asking for a scolding? After the club's person in charge found out that Tong Hui was also there, he decided on the spot to announce to the public that Xiao Yan and Tong Hui were a couple. Jiang Yandong was just in passing. He had asked around. At that time, the three of them were walking on the street together. Xiao Yan was in the middle, and Tong Hui was on the other side. Hence, this decision was completely fine. In any case, he was planning to replace these two people. Sacrificing them to protect Jiang Yandong's innocence was the best choice. Tang Guo said, "I want to treat their person in charge to a meal." Chapter 2041. Tang Guo and the system hadn't been talking for long when a piece of news was released online. Tong Hui and Xiao Yan were a couple. The photos that had been leaked earlier were actually taken by someone who had purposely taken only Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong. Tong Hui was actually with them. At first, no one believed it, but after the club took out a photo of the three of them walking on the street, they had no choice but to believe it. Did that mean that there was nothing wrong with Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan? And Xiao Yan and Tong Hui? How did these two people with stinky reputations end up together? No matter what, Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong had proven their innocence this time. But they still didn't think that Xiao Yan was innocent. Instead, they thought that Xiao Yan was a white lotus and a green tea who couldn't hook up with Jiang Yandong, so he chose Tong Huai. After all, the most outstanding people in this team were Jiang Yandong, Tong Huai, and Wen Yunyang. Tong Huai and Xiao Yan's announcement that they were a couple didn't reduce the amount of scolding. Xiao Yan received the most scolding. On the other hand, the number of people scolding Jiang Yandong decreased significantly. After all, Xiao Yan already had a boyfriend, and Jiang Yandong's fans were pretty good. Even if he didn't do anything, everyone would still speak up for him. They didn't think that the person in charge made this decision because he hated Tong Huai. Tong Huai was good, and Xiao Yan wasn't bad either, but they weren't irreplaceable. Their reputations were ruined. Tong Huai originally had many companies looking for him to be their spokesperson, but now that his reputation was ruined, no one was willing. As for Xiao Yan, so what if she won the competition? Looking for a woman with a reputation as a mistress to be their spokesperson? That would be crazy. By putting these two together, it was clear that the person in charge was a little vicious. With her reputation ruined, he saw that Xiao Yan wasn't someone who knew her place. He might as well poach members from other teams. Recently, Lu Hong had helped him choose a few. He had also looked for some for himself and was discussing the contract. Tong Huai and Xiao Yan didn't know about this. Xiao Yan was troubled by these troubles, but Tong Huai was secretly delighted. At first, he was secretly delighted. Later, he realized that other than in front of outsiders, Xiao Yan would stand beside him. When no one was looking, she was the closest to Jiang Yandong. No, it should be said that they were very close. Especially in the club, when he saw the interaction between Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong, he almost jumped up and beat them up. The club members soon realized that Tong Huai was out of his mind. Otherwise, why would he always go against Jiang Yandong? The person in charge was worried that he wouldn't be able to replace Tong Huai, so he found Tong Huai and Jiang Yandong to start a conflict. It was also during training that Tong Huai was deliberately distracted and didn't cooperate with Jiang Yandong's training, dragging him down. After a few times, the person in charge finally stood up and said, "Tong Huai, I see that you haven't been in good condition recently. Take a break. You don't have to worry about the rest of the training. After all, we have so many people in the club." In a well-established club, there would definitely be many hidden talents. For a moment, Tong Huai was dumbfounded. However, they couldn't refute the person in charge's words. Just like that, Tong Huai was replaced with the excuse of letting him rest, but in reality, wasn't this just freezing him? With his current reputation, no club would be willing to take him in. They wouldn't even take him if he didn't ask for money. In this industry, there was no shortage of young players who were good at gaming. By Geo, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quickware, supporting female lead, Calm Down Claw Peak. Chapter 2042. Tong Huai blamed this on Jiang Yandong. Although he was temporarily replaced by the team that trained with the other party, the club did not decide to let him and Xiao Yan end their relationship. The person in charge was not in a hurry to replace Xiao Yan. They had spent a lot of effort and money to recruit the top laner. So far, they had not found anyone more suitable than Xiao Yan. As long as she did not cause trouble, they would let her train with them. After all, it was still early. But the club did not let down their guard. They also chose a good backup member in case of emergencies. Tong Huaiyue and Jiang Yandong were not on good terms. Especially when he saw how intimate he was with Xiao Yan in the club, his face darkened. Xiao Yan looked at him and was even more reluctant to be with him. Unless the club asked her to, she did not dare to be with Tong Huai. Gradually, the team that they were familiar with started to distance themselves from Tong Huai. The current Tong Huai was annoying. He was always targeting Jiang Yandong and causing trouble for them. The sparring team was also very depressed. Tong Hui seemed to be very determined to kill Jiang Yandong every time. Even if the crystal exploded, he wanted to kill Jiang Yandong. Dear host, this Tong Hui must be crazy. If this goes on, he will be finished. After Tong Hui was replaced, the system was happy for 3 days and 3 nights. This guy was really looking for trouble. After finding out the reason, it wanted to treat the person in charge of the opposite team to a meal. It was a wise decision to replace Tong Hui. Isn't he finished? He has no reputation and is no longer liked by the club. The person in charge is also smart. He purposely let Tong Hui renew his contract so that he could not be recruited by the other clubs. At the start of the training, he kicked the person to the sparring team. Tong Hui did all this himself. He did nothing wrong. Yeah, he's pretty good. He was brainless and liked to talk nonsense. This was the consequence of offending a capitalist. Tang Guo was living a comfortable life. Ever since she appeared in the opening song of the international competition, she was invited to perform from time to time. As long as it wasn't too long or too far away, she would agree. It was not bad to stand on the stage like this. In her free time, she also tried to compose her own original piano pieces. Even though she would be at a disadvantage if she participated in the piano competition in her current state, it was still a good idea to let everyone know about her original composition. Later on, many businessmen approached her and invited her to be their spokesperson, but she rejected them all. Even though he was rejected, he wasn't angry. Everyone knew about her relationship with Lin Xian, so who would dare to offend her? Later on, they found that whenever the Lin family invested in a large-scale program, Tang Guo would appear and occasionally show her skills. Gradually, everyone's evaluation of her was that she was a girl who simply loved the piano and played it without any distractions. As long as Lin Xian was not training, he would go with Tang Guo. If they were training, he would bring along 2 bodyguards, a stylist, and a makeup artist. He would then have to trouble Madame Chen to accompany Tang Guo. With Madame Chen watching, Lin Xian was more assured. Days passed, and the people in the club were surprised every day. They had a feeling that they would have a chance to participate in the international competition. Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quickwear, supporting female lead, calm down. Peak. Chapter 2043. Lin Xian's efforts back then were not in vain. Not only did he analyze Jiang Yandong, but he also analyzed the entire team. He analyzed all the members of each team. Then, he shared his insights with everyone one by one, found their own weaknesses, and constantly improved them. With Lin Xian's addition, their strength grew. In order to better showcase their team's strength, they would contact the teams of other clubs to play friendly matches. Of course, not many people were willing to do it for free. The young people of the Lin family did not lack money. They used their funds to hire people to compete with them. When the other clubs saw this situation, they understood that the Lin family's team probably wanted to enter the international competition. Other than Jiang Yandong's team, the Lin family's team had competed with all the other famous teams in the country. Later, with the Lin family's influence, they used the excuse of a vacation to go overseas and compete with the teams of various countries in advance. This operation was suggested by Lin Xian. It had to be said that it was very flirtatious. After all, they did not lack money or funds. Besides passion, those who defeated the international competition also had fame and fortune. Under such a huge temptation, who would not be willing to compete with them? It was worth mentioning that Tang Guo had always followed them to the country, not the other way around. Instead, she had received an invitation to perform. Anyone who had heard her piano music could understand the uniqueness of it, especially her original compositions. It was simply a taste of life. When Lin Xian and the rest returned, Tang Guo had become popular in the art world. Her music was not a performance type, but it could make people feel as if they were there and reminisce about it. As soon as they returned, Tang Guo received a message from the system. It should be considered a good news. Tong Huai has been arrested and is currently in detention. What happened? Tang Guo was very curious. How did that bastard end up in detention? The system paused for a moment and said, he realized that not only did Xiao Yan not like him, but she even liked Jiang Yandong. He felt that he had been cuckolded. He was so angry that he quarreled with Xiao Yan. In short, it was not a happy ending. Tong Huai was unwilling to give up, so he came up with a crooked idea to get the girl first. Although Xiao Yan fell for the trap, she still had some tricks up her sleeves. In a moment of desperation, she escaped, and then she fled to Jiang Yandong's place. The two of them got together, right? That's right. After that, Tong Huai was captured. It was Jiang Yandong who called the police. He felt that he had given Tong Huai too many chances. This time, he must teach him a lesson. Is Xiao Yan planning to sue him? I don't think Xiao Yan has that intention because she remembered that Tong Huai had lent her 5 million yuan. She couldn't bear to do that. She also knew that Tong Huai had made a mistake because he liked her. Jiang Yandong planned to sue, but was stopped by Xiao Yan. Now, he should only be locked up for a few days before being released on bail. That's a pity. His mouth is cheap and he even did that kind of thing. Why didn't he just lock him up for a few years? No matter when, Tang Guo had always thought that men who used such despicable means to bully girls should be cut off from their roots. Xiao Yan's benevolence might leave behind a disaster. Of course, it had nothing to do with her. In less than 2 days, the system sent her another message. Tong Huai had been fired by the club. The person in charge had found something that could be used against him. How could a person who bullied a female teammate stay? Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quickware, supporting female lead, calm down. Peak. Chapter 2044. There was no way to hide the fact that Tong Huai had been fired. In the age of information and communication, the slightest movement would be known. There was no need to hide this. Although Tong Huai's family wasn't bad, they weren't big shots. After leaving the club and the protection of capital, he was basically a useless pawn. Who would be willing to help him suppress all this? So he was fired. How did he get fired? Everything about his performance in the club was stripped clean. Nothing was left. Of course, this was also because the person in charge didn't block the news on purpose. He was a narrow-minded person. If you were capable, like Jiang Yandong, who was irreplaceable, he would definitely swallow his pride and support you. But someone like Tong Huai could be replaced. As long as it didn't affect the big picture, he would think of a way to kick him out. Tong Huai's matter being exposed was also within his expectations. The club had already prepared a way to remove themselves from it. In an instant, everyone was calling for Tong Huai's downfall. They could tolerate Tong Huai's foul mouth and bad character, but they definitely couldn't tolerate him using such despicable means to deal with a girl. No matter who the girl was, the majority of the netizens couldn't tolerate such behavior. Who would dare to use Tong Huai, who had wanted to make a comeback? Moreover, the Team Alliance banned Tong Huai from competing for the rest of his life. They definitely couldn't allow such a person to continue polluting the esports scene. Tong Huai's esports career was over. Tang Guo breathed a sigh of relief after watching this series of farce. She felt a little good. System, so did he. Although Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan were together, they didn't dare to announce their relationship to avoid trouble with the club. They would only be intimate when no one was around. After leaving the club, Xiao Yan secretly followed Jiang Yandong back. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. The secret relationship between Jiang Yandong and Xiao Yan was also exposed. But at this time, a new season of competition had begun. The person in charge who hadn't replaced Xiao Yan was filled with regret. It was all his fault. He shouldn't have saved that 1 million. Hearing all kinds of strange noises at night, his eyebrows were about to burn off. What was going on? One was Tong Hui, and the other was Xiao Yan. They were both troublemakers. How many of our substitute members are good support players? Xiao Yan had always been a thorn in the hearts of the people in charge. It had not been easy for everyone to forget Jiang Yandong's black mark, but now it was impossible to wash it clean. Now, there were a lot of people online who were against Xiao Yan's participation in the competition. She had really stirred up public anger. If it was just a little noise, it could still be suppressed. No one liked it. His club was different from other clubs. They were nurtured like celebrities. After all, if they had a good personality and were famous, they could earn more money by taking on endorsements. At the end of the day, which capitalist wouldn't want to earn money? Could it be that they were doing charity for these esports players? 2 of them are not bad. Lu Hong hesitated for a moment and asked, Manager Li, are you planning to replace them? That's right. Look at what's happening on the internet now. Speaking of this, he was a little upset with Lu Hong. If Lu Hong hadn't said that Xiao Yan's talent was good, he wouldn't have been tempted to recruit her. If we switch people, Jiang Yandong. By Noa, Noo, Nob, O1C, Vertex. Chapter 2045. You think he'll be unhappy? Manager Li was unhappy. Even if he's unhappy, I'm unhappy. Look at what they've done. If Jiang Yandong didn't have a fiancé, he and Xiao Yan would have been a great couple. Even though he knew that Jiang Yandong had a fiancé, his team had gone crazy and decided to couple the 2 of them when he wasn't paying attention. It almost killed him. This matter angered him so much that he fired the person directly. What was the use of a team like that? He had to clean up the mess. I'm just worried that Jiang Yandong won't be happy and will screw up. For a woman, is he really going to ruin his career and give up on victory? It had to be said that Manager Li understood Jiang Yandong's mentality very well. If Jiang Yandong didn't maintain his legend of invincibility, losing a match wouldn't be a big deal to him. However, he had already enjoyed countless glories. No one would be able to take it if he was suddenly pulled down. Manager Li thought that even if Jiang Yandong wasn't happy with Xiao Yan being replaced, he wouldn't make a fuss. Instead, he would focus on the competition. Lu Hong was only a coach. He could only do something about training and selecting players. There was nothing else that he could do. He could feel Manager Li's anger towards the 2 of them. If it weren't for the fact that Jiang Yandong was irreplaceable, Manager Li would have replaced him. He sighed. Then I'll call those 2 over. You can take a look. Not long after, Tang Guo received news that Xiao Yan had been switched to the reserve team. That's fast. System, yeah. Their manager is really good. I don't think he was the one who did those stupid things before. He's made a few wise decisions recently. Especially that one against Tong Hui. It was so smart that no one could find fault with it. Moreover, Tong Hui only hates Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong. He has no complaints towards Manager Li. It was really sinister. No matter what, he's the boss of the entire club. Previously, the operations of the team were handed over to the team under him. Who would have thought that something would go wrong? Later on, when he saw that the situation wasn't right, he took over it himself. Now, Tang Guo was looking forward to what kind of big news the other side would reveal. The netizens were also very satisfied that Xiao Yan had been replaced. His impression of Jiang Yandong's team had improved, and his attitude towards the club had improved by quite a bit. Xiao Yan felt terrible. She looked at Jiang Yandong with tears in her eyes. Jiang Yandong, why didn't you speak up for me? We've been fair and square, and I've never broken anything. You should know that after training for so long, how can you change people just like that? She was really indignant. The esports scene was also her dream. When Manager Li announced the results, Jiang Yandong didn't say anything against it. Xiao Yan, that's not what I meant. Based on the current situation, Manager Li's approach is the best. Did you see the comments on the internet? If you continue to be exposed to the public, it will only cause more misunderstandings. You should train well. You might be able to play again next season. Of course, Xiao Yan didn't care about that. She cared that Jiang Yandong didn't speak up for her. Jiang Yandong didn't speak up for Xiao Yan not because he didn't have any complaints. It was because he knew that Manager Li was a person who couldn't change his mind once he had decided on something. There was no point in arguing with him. Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quickwear, supporting female lead, calm down. Peak. Chapter 2046. After an argument, it was easy to leave an unpleasant impression on the other party. If the person in charge of the club wasn't Manager Li, he might have been able to threaten him with his position. However, Manager Li had a powerful background. He was the son of a big family. Even though Jiang Yandong was young and had achieved a lot in the game, he knew that he could not afford to offend someone like this. His plan was to perform well in the next competition and try to leave a good impression on Manager Li. After winning the national and international championships, he would talk to Manager Li about Xiao Yan returning to the team. His relationship with Xiao Yan had indeed caused a lot of trouble for the club. He also felt that after winning the previous competition, the number of companies looking for him to endorse had decreased by half. It was good that Xiao Yan was taking a break for a season. He would work hard and achieve another victory, continuing the legend of being undefeated. When that time came, Manager Li would be happy and would not make things difficult for Xiao Yan. It would be easy for her to come back. Xiao Yan did not think too much about it. She only knew that Jiang Yandong did not speak up for her. Hence, when she saw Jiang Yandong's silence, she pushed the door open and ran out. Don't chase after me. I want to calm down. Xiao Yan's voice rang out, and Jiang Yandong stopped in his tracks. He really did not chase after her. He felt that she really needed to calm down. He had been troubled recently. For the upcoming competition, he could not afford to be distracted. Jiang Yandong did not know that Xiao Yan, who was upset, actually went to Wen Yunyang to pour her heart out. This time, Wen Yunyang also felt that Jiang Yandong had gone too far by not helping Xiao Yan. Although, he also felt that objecting would not be of much use. However, he felt that since Jiang Yandong had chosen to be with Xiao Yan, he should at least try to fight for her. In the end, he had agreed. It would be strange if Xiao Yan was not upset. Xiao Yan and Jiang Yandong had become more distant recently. After the team's training ended, she did not go on dates with him. Wen Yunyang was smarter than Tong Hui. He did not go out with Xiao Yan directly. Instead, he called, texted, and ordered takeout for her. Suddenly, he became the only person who gave Xiao Yan warmth. No matter what happened, she would look for Wen Yunyang. As time passed, Wen Yunyang saw that it was about time to confess his feelings to Xiao Yan. In the end, he was naturally rejected. Her original words were that she only treated him as a friend, a gentle big brother, but the one she loved in her heart was Jiang Yandong. That's right. Recently, she and Jiang Yandong had reconciled. Tanggua. Keep your distance, understand? Look at her boyfriend. He refused to chat with any girls. Every time, he would use the same excuse to go back to accompany his girlfriend. Wen Yunyang was smarter than Tong Hui. Every time he looked at Xiao Yan, he would put on a hurt and helpless expression, causing Xiao Yan to feel guilty. Sometimes, when no one was looking, Wen Yunyang would be a little intimate with her. For example, hugging, shaking hands, or even kissing her. She could not reject him. When he heard that she was short of money, Wen Yunyang did not hesitate to transfer a few million to her. Xiao Yan did not know what to do. Jiang Yandong's team and the Lin family's team represented the north and south respectively. Lin Xian led the team and defeated all the teams in the north. During this period, the opening song of every match was played by Tang Guo. Later, the fans found out that the piano songs she played were all original compositions. Moreover, the names were actually related to Lin Xian. Anyway, it was a way to encourage her boyfriend to work hard. The majority of fans expressed that they did not want to watch this public display of affection. Jiang Yandong's team encountered some trouble. The capital behind last year's runner-up team used a dirty trick and kidnapped Xiao Yan. The world is still a little small. Tomorrow ends. Chapter 2047. Even though Xiao Yan was quite skilled, it would only take a little brainpower to deal with her. They wanted Jiang Yandong to withdraw from the competition immediately and let Xiao Yan go. When Tang Guo heard this, she was not surprised. Even though the plot had been brought forward, the original plot did have such a thing. The club definitely could not let Jiang Yandong withdraw from the competition. They did not even let him know about this to prevent him from affecting the entire team because of Xiao Yan. It was not the first time that Jiang Yandong had been affected by Xiao Yan. In the end, it was Wen Yunyang who realized that something was wrong and took the initiative to secretly save Xiao Yan. He managed to save her, but both of them were injured. Wen Yunyang's injury was more serious. He had been shot in the leg and could no longer participate in the competition. Not to mention the competition, if he was shot in the leg, he would not be able to walk properly and would become a cripple. Luckily, he was treated in time and there was no risk of amputation. When Manager Li found out, he was furious. At that time, he had endured it and did not fire Xiao Yan. After all, keeping this news from him had already made Jiang Yandong unhappy. Luckily, there were still a few people in the team who were good in the mid lane. However, when Manager Li looked at Wen Yunyang, Jiang Yandong, and Xiao Yan, it was as if he had been fed a mouthful of shit. Tang Guo retracted her thoughts. In the original plot, Wen Yunyang was also injured and could not participate in the competition. However, as Manager Li had said, there were a few substitute members in the team who were good in the mid lane. After so many things had happened before, Manager Li had thought of this. He would often let the other substitute team members take turns to train with them. Lu Hong had objected to it previously, but now he could not help but think that Manager Li was very wise. The competition continued, but Manager Li blocked the news. He even used the excuse that the team members were in contact with external matters and that it would affect their competition, so he temporarily confiscated their phones. Jiang Yandong did not have any objections to this request. After all, the previous competition was because he had seen some negative comments online. He believed that the club's approach was also correct. This way, everyone could play without any distractions. At this time, Wen Yunyang, who was lying in the hospital, had just woken up. When he knew that he would be a cripple forever, he was stunned. When he found out that something had happened to Xiao Yan, he didn't even think about it. It was as if he had been bewitched. He had to save her. Previously, he only knew that his leg was indeed injured, but he didn't expect it to be so serious. He found a doctor and asked if there was really no way to recover. Maybe you don't understand. If it were any other injury, it would be fine, but this bullet wound is very destructive. It's already very lucky to be able to save one leg. When Yunyang found it hard to accept that he had become a cripple in his prime. No matter how gentle he was, his eyes were gloomy. In that instant, he truly regretted his actions. Why did he act so impulsively? He clearly knew that this person did not come with good intentions. He should have calmed down at that time. Perhaps calling the police was a good choice. Why did he go there alone? When Xiao Yan arrived, she saw Wen Yunyang's gloomy expression. When she found out that Wen Yunyang was going to become a cripple, she was very upset. She ran over and cried by his side. Xiao Yan's tears were quite useful. It made Wen Yunyang forget that this was her fault. She was the one who had caused him to become a cripple. After that, Xiao Yan stayed by Wen Yunyang's side in the hospital every day. She only paid attention to the competition when she returned to her room. Baijio, Noo, Nob, O1C, Quickwear, supporting female lead, calm down. Peak. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.